Welcome back to the Daily Balance Podcast. I'm Adean.
And I'm Brittany.
And today we are going deep. We're talking about what it truly means to live a life that you have intentionally designed, one that's rooted in self awareness, personal truth, and positive action. Did you know that in the United States, nearly 1 in 5 adults, over 59 million people experience a diagnosable mental illness in any given year?
Anxiety disorders are among the most common, with an estimated 31.6% of U.S. adults experiencing any anxiety disorder at some time in their lives. Major depression, approximately 22.5 million U.S. adults experience a major depressive episode in the past year. Nearly 1 in 5 children ages 3 to 17 have ever been diagnosed with a mental, emotional, or behavioral concern.
In a recent survey, 40% of adolescents reported persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness in the past year. The treatment gap, estimates suggest that only about half of those people with mental illness in the U.S. receive treatment.
We often talk about getting help, but our special guest today helps people find their own power to move from just surviving to actually thriving. She is an award-winning clinician and educator who shaped the future of counseling and a powerful voice in helping people rewrite their personal narratives.
She's here to take us beyond the couch and give us an actionable strategies for big things like anxiety, trauma, and self-doubt, and the small daily choices that shape our mental wellness. Get ready to shift your perspective and find your personal blueprint for balance. Please join us in welcoming an incredible guest, Dr. Lori Nixon Bethea.
Hi. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for having me.
We are so thrilled to have you on our podcast.
Yes.
Oh, thank you for having. It's my pleasure. I'm really excited for this discussion we're about to have tonight.
It's so much, it's so needed right now. And
Yes.
you know, Lori, Dr. Lori, I think it's what you'd like us to call you, Dr. Lori. So, Lori Nixon Bethea, PhD, LPC, LMHC, NCC, ACS, is the owner of Intentional Hearts Counseling Services, LLC, in Monmouth County, based counseling practice providing counseling services to adults. Dr. Lori has been working in the field of counseling for over 18 years. I know she doesn't look it. She has experience working with numerous populations, including the chronically mentally ill, youth in foster care systems, individuals in crisis, and providing individual and group counseling to children, adults, couples, and families in both New Jersey and Florida.
She received her bachelor's degree in psychology from Monmouth University and advanced her education by receiving a master's degree in psychological counseling and a postmaster's certificate in professional counseling also at Monmouth University. She received her PhD in counseling with a specialization in marital and family counseling from Barry University in Miami, Florida.
Dr. Lori, thank you so much for joining us. You
Thank
wear so
you.
many hats. Counselor, professor, author, advocate, and most importantly, our cousin.
Yes. Surprise.
For those
Yes.
listeners out there, we're just getting to know you, and for those who want to know you, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and what led you to dedicate your life to helping others find balance and intentionality in their lives?
Absolutely. So I was that person in high school that everyone would come to with their problems, and I didn't really have anything going on, like no problems in my life, my personal life. So I would always sit and listen and give advice. And I knew literally my senior year of high school in my yearbook, they had this questionnaire, where do you see yourself in 10 years? So that time I was 17, and I said, I see myself as a practicing at that time psychologist in a private practice. I saw myself doing the work that I'm doing today. So when I go back into my yearbook and my pictures there, it says, where Where do you see yourself? It says exactly what I am doing
Here.
today. So yeah, here. And for me, that's just so, in retrospect, looking back, we know a lot of times what our purpose is, but we don't know how to get there. And sometimes people have a hard time even recognizing their
Yes.
purpose. But I was blessed because I knew my niche early on. It was either that or be a ballerina. So it was one or the other. And I went with therapy and becoming a counselor. But my desire to help people in any aspect, and through challenges, through trials, trying to be positive. I've always been an optimistic person. I've always been pretty positive. I've always been pretty nice.
Yes.
Which changes as you grow, and you really recognize how people are and you understand, so you get more discernment and you become more careful, but that kindness stays as your foundation. And that's always been who I am. I want to help. I want to make a difference. And that's kind of how I ended up doing this work. I knew very early on that I wanted to do this work, and I was consistent and just kept going. And here I am today, all these years later, still practicing, teaching now, as a addition to what I didn't see myself doing initially. But I'm an educator and a practitioner. So it's exactly what I could have only imagined back then at 17. It's
That's a big story.
It's such a testament.
Thank
to
you.
yourself in the future and then bring
Yes.
that to fruition. So
Absolutely. And we're getting ready to have I believe we're having our reunion. And so it's kind of like, whoa, walking back into, being around my peers and just knowing back then, I didn't know I would actually be doing this today. I dreamt of it. I hoped for it, but to know that God already had that planned and I kind of just walked into it. That's something I'm looking forward to sharing that with others as well.
Amazing.
I love that.
Thank you.
So connecting personal experience to professional path, you're a formal ballerina and a formal Miss New Jersey USA delegate. How
That's
have
my
these,
cousin.
how have these experiences in high pressure, perfection driven environments informed your work as a mental health professional, particularly with issues like imposter syndrome and women's issues?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think that with me being a former dancer and performance anxiety in the dance world, which is another area of specialization that I work with. It's something new that I started doing, working with professional dancers, doing research on professional dancing and mental health struggles that they deal with. It's something not really spoken about in the dance world, but dancers, as you mentioned, have a perfectionist attitude. It has to be perfect. Our body has to be perfect. Our dance steps have to be perfect. The routine has to look perfect. Choreography has to be perfect.
Flawless.
And flawless. And there cannot be room for mistakes. Right. And I would say, because I didn't become a professional dancer, I was really on the brink of, yes, I want to be the best dancer possible, but also I'm not going to that level where it has to be so perfect that now my mental health is being
sacrificed there.
Yes. But it did teach me discipline. Yes. And that was something I needed to enter into the counseling field, to continue down the road towards education. And then with Miss New Jersey USA, it's the same mentality, I would say, in the dance world, where it's perfectionism. You have to look a certain way. And I recognize that I only did one pageant. That was enough for me. But it was a wonderful
learning.
Yes, it was a wonderful experience. I met a lot of people. And it really just gave me that opportunity to kind of get out there and just see what the pageant world is like. It was great, but it's a different world. Right. And when you say imposter syndrome, I can see how, especially with women and working with women, the reflection of being not only the best, especially when you're a woman of color
and you're working, that, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
As a little girl, we're taught we always have to be better.
Right. We have to be better. Yeah, absolutely. Especially when I know my experience. I went to a Catholic school. I was for many years the only little Black girl, not in the entire school, but in my grade, in several grades. And the next Black student was maybe 4 years older than me. And, we identified with one another. She would say, that's my sister. And she would tell everybody, that's my little sister. We weren't related, but we were the only Black girls in the school. And so with that, I was kind of like the token child. Like I had to be perfect. Yes. Everyone's looking at me. Yes. And so that reflects into my career and even where I work. I'm one of very few Black women. I don't think that's by chance. It kind of just happened that way. But it's like a spotlight sometimes on you. And so imposter syndrome plays a huge role, especially in the work that I do, because I've experienced it and I currently experience it.
I think we all do the same.
Yes, absolutely. And I've spoken to so many women over the years that just struggle so much with trying to adjust to how the world sees them, how they see themselves, and kind of battling with that. And that creates, like you said earlier, anxiety. Anxiety is depression. So many symptoms come from imposter syndrome and just trying to feel like you deserve to be in the room.
Speaking of that, Brittany and I were talking the other day, we just can't believe we're doing this podcast for one. Okay.
Yes.
That's crazy in itself. But then it's like, we have this huge platform now, and are we supposed to be here? Are we deserving of this? And is this something we should be doing? And so you just never feel like you're going to be good enough, or you shouldn't be doing it, or you're undeserving of it. So I really get that.
That's right. Yeah, it's like, should I be doing this? Should I be speaking on these topics? Yes. And it's like, yes, you should.
Yes, exactly. So, now, speaking of awareness into action, because that's our tagline, Lori, our podcast is all about turning awareness into action. Yes. So in your view, what's the first step someone should take when they become aware of a mental health challenge, whether it's their own or a loved one? And then on the second part of that question, how can we move past just knowing about it and starting to do something about it?
That is a layered question, but a great one. Number one, I would say when they become aware of it within themselves or a loved one, the first step is actually acknowledging, like awareness. Once you become aware, acknowledging that this is real. I'm thinking about it from a loved one. It's easy to ignore or to turn a blind eye, to pretend like it's not happening and to not do anything and just hope, especially in the African American community, let's just hope for the best, let's pray it away. Let's pretend it.
And don't you dare go tell anybody.
Yes. What happens here stays here. And, you don't need to share our business. But in the meantime, people are suffering. And it's so dangerous. Right. And so I think that we have to do better, or whomever has to do better with, if you see something with, within a loved one, symptoms, behavior, something going on, you have to speak up. You have to not ignore it. You have to acknowledge it. So I think that's number one step. And then within yourself, if you notice something, don't wait, because we can prevent a lot of the serious situations involving mental health from occurring if we handle it when we notice it right away, instead of waiting years and years. When we talk about suicide prevention, what would happen if someone noticed those symptoms or those signs early on and said something instead of ignoring it? So we could prevent so many things from happening just by speaking up, just by acknowledging it. So I definitely think that's the first step. Acknowledge, and then we can move forward once you recognize that this is a real thing. This is nothing to ignore. We need to take the next step. And that would be getting that person help, getting yourself help, and seeking help. Absolutely. I'm so sorry if I didn't answer the second part of the question.
And part of that question is, Like you said, how do you move past just knowing about it and start doing something? Because I think,
Yes. Yes.
a lot of times we might recognize that, but
Yes.
you're uncomfortable to talk about it, and you don't
Yes.
want to just go up to somebody and like,
Yes.
you've got issues.
Yes.
Definitely not like that.
Yes,
How do you do it?
absolutely.
How do
Yes.
you do it?
That is hard. That is really hard because a lot of people, let's just say, even within themselves, it's like, I don't want to have that conversation with myself. A lot of people will say that because they're fearful of the stigma attached to seeing a therapist or being diagnosed with a mental health issue. There's so much stigma that still exists. I think we've come a long way, but there's still so much going on there that needs to be done. I think education is key. And so even if you were to share information, resources with that person, you may not have to say, outright, I know that you have a problem or you have an issue. Sometimes it's okay to do so. You might just have to because you can save a life. Right. But in other instances, you can share resource information. You can say, I saw this show on YouTube. It's called the Daily Podcast. You might want to check it out.
Yeah, you don't want to miss this episode.
That's right. That's right. But there are little gems, little things you can do that aren't as direct, kind of indirect, to kind of gear or, get the person towards what you're seeing in them, and maybe it'll help them in some way. Because that's it. Because you're right. Sometimes you can't just go up to someone. That might be really offensive, and they may not speak to you ever again.
Yes.
Yeah.
But in other instances, resources, sharing information that you might find, websites, a therapist card, anything you can think of, because it really can save a life. It can help that person who might be struggling within themselves, but really they don't know how to take that next step. They don't know where to go. And so if you have some resources, I say, don't be afraid to share it, because you never know what someone is going on within themselves and what they might be struggling with. And they might just be waiting for someone to say, you know what, I'm here for you. I can support you. I can walk through this with you. Sometimes that's all it takes. Just, I'm here.
A lot of people see maybe you going through something.
Yes.
And they don't want to put in any more burden or more pressure on you.
That's right.
And they are on their last rope, and
Yes.
but to keep you from having to experience anything or bring you into their word, that they just rather not talk about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. I agree.
You touched a little bit about imposter syndrome. Can you first explain the term imposter syndrome, and let's talk about your research on imposter syndrome, particularly in higher education for BIPOCs, individuals. It's so important for our listeners who might feel like a fraud despite their accomplishments. Yes. And what's one practical, actionable step they can take to challenge that feeling?
Yeah, absolutely. So imposter syndrome comes from the term imposter phenomenon, which is the experience of feeling like you don't belong in any setting that you might be in, whether it's a professional setting, organization. And so you feel like you're a fish out of water. I'm here, but I don't think I should be here. It's like I'm an anomaly. I'm here, but I don't belong here. Something doesn't seem right, or I just don't fit in. And so it's the idea of, I may have earned the title, but I haven't earned the right to be here. Similar to what you were just saying about the podcast, it's like, do we really belong here? And it's literally, it's not to say you didn't earn it, because you did. It's just the mindset that you believe that you didn't. And so it takes a lot of challenging that negative self-belief about yourself, because that's really where it stems from. It's a negative self-belief that a person develops about themselves when they're in a space when they feel inferior to those around them. Okay. It's not that they are inferior, it's just a feeling. It's a belief system that they've developed. So the work that I've done with my colleague, actually, she began it long before me, is looking at a BIPOC, BIPOC, Black, Indigenous people of color in higher educational settings. So we're looking at students who are of Latino background, African American background, who are first generation students. So the first in their family to go to college, how they feel being in a higher ed setting and the imposter syndrome that develops with feeling like they don't belong there. And so we were able to just explore through narratives, looking at their own storied experiences of what that must be like for them entering into college and feeling like I'm either the only one here, I have to represent my entire family, all of my people, depending on, what their background was, where they went to high school, they might be entering into a school. And I forgot to mention, these are also students in a predominantly white university. Yeah. So PW university, where they are the only ones that might be there. And so those experiences we found have led to mental health symptoms, anxiety, depression. A lot of students felt like, they weren't sure if they wanted to continue, attending because of those imposter syndrome feelings. So imposter syndrome really, really runs deep. And it's interesting because my colleague was sharing with me the other day that the work and the background of imposter syndrome actually began with women. And so that's really interesting to know, like that was really the foundational piece. That was something that I learned too. I wasn't aware. I've always seen research on imposter syndrome surrounding Black women, but to know that just women in general and probably white women at that time early on was really the focus, but it has changed. And we tried to really do something different by looking at students of all gender, and different types of diverse backgrounds to see how it reflects in their experiences. But what I can say is from the research that I've reviewed as well as ours, it's the same wherever you go. Those feelings are very salient. Yes.
Well, the one thing that I am very proud of with you is the fact that you wrote a children's book.
Yes.
Riley,
yes.
And her book, I'm going to plug it right now.
Thank
you.
Called
Riley's Worry Away.
Thank you.
And it's a fantastic resource. What inspired you, to write that? And for the moms and dads listening, what's the single worry away activity or conversation starter that you can have with your own children to help them with anxiety?
Absolutely. So Riley Away secretly is about me. So I'm Riley, just kind of changed the name, but I was a worrywart growing up. I don't know if it was because I was a perfectionist type of child. Everything had to be a certain way and perfect, and I had to get good grades, and dance moves had to be right, and I had to go to practice on time, like all of that.
Sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar. So I was a worrywart, and I just thought, like literally out of the blue, this was pre-COVID. 2018 is when I wrote Riley's Worry Away, and I literally was just thinking about my own experiences and how that was so long ago, but how could that reflect into what children today might be dealing with? And I just started writing, and Riley was formed and she was created, and I made her reflective of me, but she's for all kids. It doesn't matter what background. She's for any child that has ever experienced any sign, symptom of worry, because I wanted it to be preventative. Again, I'm all about prevention. So if we can tackle whatever they're worrying about early on, it doesn't have to develop or exacerbate to something more serious as they get older. Again, turning that blind eye. Sometimes parents don't notice the signs and symptoms and kind of just, she's just really shy, or she's really quiet, or, he just is a worrier, that's all. But it could be something deeper going on. So we want to try to, whether it's a parent, a guardian, a teacher even, get it in the schools, having these conversations, noticing these signs, and really broaching the subject early on so that we can help these little ones before it becomes something more intensified down the line. I wanted this to be a conversational piece, the book itself. So, you read it to your child and then talk about it. But one way that I think that parents can kind of open that door is by checking in with their kids on a regular daily basis, having those little light conversations, whether it's at the dinner table or you're picking them up from school. Like, how was your day? Tell me about your day. Starting off there, you can really understand their inner world, because sometimes they'll just open up, but because they don't have the words or the way to really express that worry, it might come out and, oh, I had a stomach ache today. Yeah, I had a headache today. Oh, I just don't feel good today. That could be worry. They just don't know how to give it the word. Yeah. So really just having those light-hearted conversations and understanding their inner world. What's going on? How did your day go? And really starting there, you can learn a lot about your child and really how their day was going, what bothered them, maybe what triggered them, all of that. But I think we just sometimes see kids and say, oh, they had a great day or they're doing well, but really don't ask those deep questions, which is actually light. It doesn't have to be super deep, but you can find out just by asking light questions and digging a little bit for yourself.
Yeah, that's such a good call to action for the little people.
The little ones, they're so sweet.
On past trauma and present action, you have advanced training in EMDR. Can you explain a little bit about what that is, number one?
Sure.
And I know it's a powerful tool for trauma, but for our listeners today, the actions they take today are rooted in past experiences they may not even fully process. How does becoming aware of past trauma help a person take positive, deliberate action in their life today?
Great question. Great. EMDR is eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So what it helps the client and the counselor or therapist do is get to a place where the client is coming in, they recognize, they're aware that some type of trauma did occur in their lives, but oftentimes it's pushed back into their unconscious, so they can't really get to it immediately. The goal for the reprocessing is to help them bring it to the forefront so that they can begin to process that trauma and then work through it. It's very in-depth. A matter of fact, I don't use it on a regular basis at my practice because it's a very, very detailed, specialized practice, but it does great with people who have dealt with any type of, past trauma, present or recent trauma. It's amazing at reprocessing those traumatic experiences so that they can have a healthy future. The goal is to reprocess and to make the client feel like, you know what, I understand what happened. It's not my fault, and take healthy steps towards moving forward in their lives. But it takes a lot of work. EMDR is really a commitment, I would say, on the client's part to be willing to go there, sometimes to really dark, scary places. That goes with hand in hand with EMDR, because once you're aware of what happened, it's like, now I can begin to take the steps to move forward. But knowing that there might have been some type of trauma and being unwilling to go there because you're unsure of what it might trigger inside of you, it comes out in other ways throughout your life. Like, you may not talk about it. It may not be something that's in terms of being a memory and something you can recall, everything that happened, but it might be triggered by something someone says, something someone does. Someone might hug you. It might come out that way. Right. So that's why it's so important to get the help so that you can have healthy relationships, because trauma that's left untreated impacts relationships, marriages, relationships with parents, siblings, friends, everything, colleagues. Yes. It can impact in such a negative way. So it's important to work towards healing so that you can be healthy. Holding on to trauma, it's like baggage. You're wearing it on your bag, or wearing it on your back like a backpack and carrying it throughout your life. It's worth it to allow yourself to heal once you become aware, once you recognize that something did happen to you, or that you had an experience that was very, challenging for you to deal with on your own.
Okay. Well, on the community side of mental health, as someone who provides services to Monmouth County, you have your pulse on the community. What is one community-wide mental health challenge you see? And what's an action our listeners can take to be a part of the solution?
I think there's probably a lot, but the biggest one that I would say is the stigma.
Yeah.
As we mentioned a little earlier, stigma attached to mental health. And I live in a diverse community, but I do believe, especially in the communities of people of color, and I even hear it from my students. They tell me about their families a lot, and they say, the fact that they're studying to be counselors, or that's stigmatized still. It's like, why would you do that? And so in certain communities, it's still something that people are not comfortable with. It's mental health makes people very uncomfortable. And I feel that one of the things we have to do, not just as a therapist, but all of us within the community, is continue to educate. Similar to what you're doing, having me on to talk. This is education for people who might feel like, I don't want to even go there to talk about mental health. That's something, we don't deal with in our, ethnic group or in our, family. We don't talk about things like that, but we have to. We have to.
Yes,
Just like you go to the doctor to deal with hypertension or diabetes, you need to come see someone to deal with what's going on up here, because it's going to eventually influence your body, your health. Mind and body connection is so powerful. So you can't have one without the other.
So true. So true. Especially it's whole wellness.
It is.
Wellness.
Yes, absolutely.
So from theory to practice, as a professor, you're not only teaching the next generation of counselors, but you're also doing so with awareness into action. Approach. How do you encourage your students to translate their academic knowledge into real world impact?
Oh, that's a big one. That's something that as a counselor educator, I love teaching all of my counseling graduate courses, because it's really allowing students to see, I'm a practitioner. I'm also an educator, but I'm a practitioner. So this is the work that I do. But I try to show them that you have to be a reflection of what you want to see out there. So in your everyday life, I teach them something about congruency. You have to be congruent. Who you are as a person has to also reflect into your professional life. So when you're out there, that's how you make change. Your clients might see you, people see you. And so you want to always be that person that people are saying, like, wow, they're a light. If you're going to help people, you want that reflected in your everyday life. And no one's perfect. So not everyone's going to have a perfect day or a happy day. Yeah. But I think that we have to reflect the change we want to see in the world. And as counselors, if this is the work we want to commit ourselves to doing, it starts with literally everything we do, everywhere we go. Be a light. I use this example with my students, like, when you're on the road and you're driving, you don't want to be that person that has road rage, even though I understand. Because
I think it's time for me to leave now. You take it from here, Brittany. I'm just kidding.
I think about this for myself too, right? It took time.
Yeah.
I have to be a reflection for them. Yeah. But I use this example because you never know who you could be directing that road rage towards. It could be the client going to your office. And then you show up there at the office and they're like, whoa, okay, I'm leaving. Because of the reflection. So you have to be careful. Just being congruent and being that change that you want to see. You start with yourself, and it's reflected in the work that you do. Because clients know when you're faking it. They know if you're totally the opposite just by your presentation, by the way that your mannerisms, all of that comes out in the counseling room. So being able to just be a genuine, authentic person, being yourself, but hopefully that will reflect, the type of work that you want to provide to your client. And so, I think that's applying, because you're using skills related to counselor identity to actually approach how you're going to counsel your client. So that's one of the major things. It's one thing about teaching them to practice, teaching them theories and techniques, but it's another thing to help them work on themselves so that they can be the best form of them in that counseling room.
I often think about, as a counselor, as someone who was actually out here helping these people with these challenges in mental health, what it must be like when you are having your own challenges, at
Yes.
home.
Yes.
You may be going through something at home, domestic violence, or anything could be happening as a counselor, and you have
That's
to put
right.
on this mask and then be this other person to your
Exactly.
client. So,
Absolutely. It's a lot. And it's funny because I was just talking to my hairdresser about that. I was saying, she asked me a similar question and she was saying, wow, it's a lot, like, how do you do it? And I said, well, it's about setting boundaries. I know it's literally turning it on and turning it off. When I go into that session, it's no longer about me.
yeah.
And thankfully, I think I've been able to master this, but it took a lot of time. I go in and it's literally my life turns off and their life turns on because I have to be present enough in that moment that no matter what happened in my day, no matter what happened on the road getting to where I'm going, I have to be present for this person who needs my support and needs my guidance in that moment. If I'm thinking about all of the things I have to do or all of the things that went wrong, I'm not being present, and then I'm not being genuine enough for them at that moment. And they need you to be there 100%, not 50, not 40, not 30. But it takes time to get to that point. It takes a lot of growth and a lot of, practice, seeing a lot of different clients. Yeah. Yeah.
So, on the daily balance for mental health professionals, the work you and your students do is incredibly demanding and requires immense emotional investment. As an approved clinical supervisor, you are in a position to guide the next generation of counselors. It's a big job. What
Yes.
advice do you give them about maintaining their own daily balance and preventing burnout so that they can continue to serve their community effectively? Like you touched on that a little bit,
Yes.
but
Yes.
what advice do you give them?
Yes, absolutely. So I love that you asked that question because it starts with I'm teaching a class right now where it's like an introductory class where they learn about being a counselor. What does this mean in terms of counselor identity? And one of the major pieces is counselor wellness. You know, counselor wellness, if you're not well, if you're not feeling like you're 100% for your client, and of course we're human, so we're not always going to be at our 100, but we have to be present for them. We have to give them 100% of our selves in that moment, even though we may not be feeling it.
Yeah.
And so self-care is essential. So I tell my students to start right now in their first semester a self-care journal where they begin to discuss with themselves how are they processing just the experience of being a student in this program and all of the different things that they're learning. How are they applying that to their daily life? And how are they dealing with their challenges? What are they doing for fun? Are they balancing their lives? Are you making time to, work? Are you making time for play? Are you making time for school? Like, how are you doing all of this? And creating a self-care plan is essential. So that's something that I really stress upon. You have to have some type of plan. I don't care what it is. It has to work for you. It doesn't work for me, and that's fine. But it's your plan. And this is something that might change over time, but I want you to have something in place because pretty soon the hard work in the actual session is going to take place, and that's when you're going to feel it. So they're feeling it now as students, but when you become an intern even, that's when they're definitely going to begin to juggle things. So that self-care plan is going to come into place. So we start creating that early on so that they won't get to a point when they get to their practicum and internship. And then of course, when they're actually licensed and practicing, that they're going to say, I don't want to do this because, I'm stressed out. Yeah.
I love
We
that
want to
you
prevent
encompass
that.
right in from the beginning.
Yes,
So
yes.
helpful.
Start teaching them early so that they can take it with them throughout their entire career. And hopefully they do.
Well, speaking of you, like you said, it's a self care thing, and I
Yes.
think my generation was always looked at as if that kind of thing was you being selfish, or
Yes, yes,
you do have this guilty feeling of
yes,
have a massage,
yes.
or these kinds of things. And you have to come to grips with that. You need
Yeah,
to do this for yourself.
Yes.
that's
you know,
right.
and be
That's
okay
right.
with that and feel good about it. And don't
That's
let
right.
anyone make you feel guilty about it.
That's right. Exactly.
The biggest
That
guilt, I think, comes from inside.
Inside, absolutely. And as women, that reminds me, what you just said reminds me of like the superwoman syndrome. Like, I have to do everything, be everything to everybody, and I'm not supposed to take time for myself and you fall apart.
That's where I was. And
Yes.
yes. And
Oh,
it
yes.
doesn't do anything but make you fall apart.
Make you
So
fall apart.
That's
get your
right.
self-care in order, guys.
That's
Self-care.
right.
Take care of
Exactly.
you.
Get your bubble bath.
You're no good if
Yes.
you're not taking care of you.
Absolutely. And Brittany, you have little ones, so yes.
I definitely, it took a while because I'm a
Yes.
late bloomer to
Yes.
therapy.
Yes,
So,
that's okay.
and
That's
so I had to get
wonderful.
my own plan together.
That's right. That's right. Yes, but
This
that's
is a therapy
wonderful.
household here.
Yes,
That's
literally.
wonderful. That is so great. That's
Definitely.
amazing.
It definitely changed
Amazing.
my life. So yes, on
Wow.
creating your own narrative. Your training in narrative therapy is all about helping people reshape their life stories. For our listeners who feel stuck in difficult or negative narratives, what is one tangible way they can begin to change their own story and become the author of their own positive change?
I love that. That's exactly what narrative therapy is all about, rewriting that oppressive story that's been following you for most people the majority of their lives. So it's literally about identifying, how can I put a spin? Once you're in therapy, that's when you begin to learn that, or rather unlearn some of the things that you became comfortable with or things that became familiar to you.
Yeah.
And you start to change, you start to challenge those ideals once you learn something different. So that's really the idea of narrative therapy, being able, as you said, to rewrite your story, being able to rewrite your truth, the one that was used, maybe it was imposed upon you to oppress you. I use that example of like someone who's been abused and that trauma from that abuse follows them. So they've been maybe looking at themselves in a negative light or feeling like they don't deserve anything good in their lives. So they're walking around with this story, this truth that they believe is actually true. It's not until they enter into therapy that they can learn or unlearn that I don't have to think about myself in that way and I don't have to live in the past. So it's literally about taking whatever future hopes, dreams you want and writing that into your new narrative and omitting the things that were working against you from that narrative, rewriting your story, rewriting your truth, and knowing the biggest part of that is being empowered to do so. You now have the power to take that pen back and write it. Someone wrote it for you, you take it back and you rewrite what you want to see, your plot, the twist in the plot, and your ending, what you want the future to look like. So it's very empowering, but I do think it takes being able to go to therapy, being able to walk through that door to open that for yourself so that you can unlearn those things. Because that's the challenge. When it's embedded in your mind and this is something you do believe to be true, you have to sometimes get some help to help you rewire your brain.
There you go. And there's no shame in that.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not even-
Yeah.
And this is not one that I would normally ask, but what I have also seen that doing therapy is a lot of people still see the other person that you might have been before, and
Yes.
they want to treat you like the person that you were before and
Yes.
recognize the person that you've become. And a lot of people get stuck in that. Well,
True.
people see me as this person. How do I climb out of that? How do I get their perception to change and make myself
Absolutely.
feel like this is where I am now, and I need you to see where I am.
Absolutely. That is huge. That happens a lot. And it's what happens there is that you're changing, but the environments around you aren't changing. So those people are the problem at that moment.
Is that tea?
So it's not you anymore. You've made the change.
Right.
If they don't want to meet you where you are today and they're still stuck with who you once were, who you are no longer, you might have to release those relationships, which is a whole nother.
That's when we'll have you back for part two. So you don't want to go too deep into that just now, okay?
Oh, okay. We'll stop. But yes, you might want to release. That's a whole nother.
Oh gosh. So Dr. Lori, you shared so much wisdom with us today. And for our
Thank
listeners,
you.
what is the single most important action they can take this week to improve their daily balance and mental wellness?
Wow. A single act.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say put yourself first.
Mm,
We talked just a moment ago about the selfishness
Mhm.
that sometimes we feel when we focus on ourselves a little too much or we tend to ourselves because we need to. And so I would say make that a priority.
mm,
Check in with yourself and see, what do you need this week?
Okay.
What am I in need of to get me through this week? What am I lacking? What can I give more of to myself? Really checking in, because I don't know how often any of us do that on a regular basis. Maybe once in a while, but are you checking in on a daily basis? So my suggestion would be check in with yourself on a daily basis
Okay.
and just make sure that if there's something that you're in need of or something that you need to do for yourself, that you prioritize it and you do it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Definitely. You can't pour from an empty cup. So you
Amen.
gotta take care of
Yes,
yourself.
that's right. That's right.
I mean, wow.
Wow.
Dr. Lori, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
That was
you
truly a
both.
powerful and heart-centered conversation, from understanding the roots of imposter syndrome to simple yet profound advice on talking to our kids about worry. You've given our listeners so much to think about and, most importantly, to do.
Yeah, that call
Thank
to action
you.
was great. Think about yourself. Self-awareness, absolutely. I think the core takeaway for me is the message of intentionality,
Yes.
that we
Yes.
can begin to author our own positive story, whether that's through seeking help from past trauma with something like EMDR, or just, excuse me, or just taking that single most important action this week to improve our mental wellness.
Sure.
Dr. Lori, for our listeners who want to connect with you, learn more about Intentional Hearts Counseling Services, or find your wonderful children's book, Riley's Worry Away, where's the best place for them to find you?
Oh, thank you. It would be www.drlaurinixon.com. I'm also on Instagram at Dr. Lori, PhD.
Love it.
Thank you again for being so generous with your
Thank
time
you.
and your wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was so wonderful, and I love what you both are doing. Keep on doing it. It is needed, and it's purposeful work. So thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this time with you.
Thank you. And to all of our listeners, remember, turning awareness into action starts with that first step. Whether you're struggling with mental health challenge or simply looking for more balance, please reach out to a professional like Dr. Lori Nixon, Bethea.
Yes. That's it for our week's Heart to Heart from Beyond the Couch. You can find all our resources mentioned in today's episode, including Dr. Nixon Bethea's contact information, in our show notes.
Join us next time as we continue our journey toward finding the daily balance.
Until then, be well, be intentional, and keep putting your awareness into action.
Listen, we want to hear what you have to say, what you think about this episode. Comment and interact with us to let us know what action you're taking to bring awareness to your cause, and what you want to hear from us. Put that right here in the comment section, and we want to share that with you.
Thank you to our listeners for joining on this episode of the Daily Balance Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit that subscribe button and like, share, and follow us on all social media platforms at the Daily Balance Podcast. It really goes a long way to helping our mission and spreading awareness.
Listen, and the conversation doesn't just stop here. For our dedicated supporters, stick around for our after show called
Tea Time.
We'll be continuing today's topic, answering your questions, diving deeper into personal stories about mental wellness for us, and tantalizing details that relate to our topics, and just hanging out.
Tune in again next week for another inspiring episode. And until then, always remember,
Count it all joy.
That's just it right there.
3 times.